Hey guys, welcome back to part two of my domestic violence story. And I believe we left off where we were talking about us moving back into my house. Yes, we moved back into my house. So you guys, please don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, hit that post notification bell, you guys. We're very close to getting to our 1,000 subscribers, so help us out and hit that subscribe button so we can meet our goal. Thank you guys so much in advance. All right, so let's get back into the story. So from his house, we ended up moving into my house, and he ended up getting this job at a restaurant, and the abuse had calmed down, because he was working every day. He was bringing in decent money, and we were kind of living like a little family. So I was a little bit happy, even though I still was kind of shaken by what I had went through. And my guard was still up, but I'm like, okay, he's got a job, everything's going good. As long as we can stay good, then everything will be all right. So he worked for a while. Me and my son, we stayed home, and pretty much I was like a stay-at-home mom, cooking and cleaning, and he worked late nights, so I would cook dinner, make sure he had his dinner in the microwave waiting for him so he could warm it up and eat it. And we had our own little routine going on. It was pretty cool. But then one day he lost his job. I don't know how he lost his job. I don't remember what happened to where he lost his job, but then the abuse started to pick up more again. But then it was worse. It was worse, you guys. Like, this man would do things to torture me. This is when the things started happening with the sexual abuse, the he just did anything he could to hurt me. And it was horrible. I would have to hide a black eye here and there, and I was stuck in the house, couldn't go nowhere, couldn't do anything. And then eventually I ended up, just telling my family about what was going on. And, they were there for me, even though there wasn't anything that they could do if I wasn't willing to get out of it. But, they were still supportive, and, they still cared for me. They didn't turn their back on me or anything like that. So, anyway, we ended up, going through a bunch of different things. Like, it was times where I tried to get away from him, or I tried to get him out of my house. And there's one part that I forgot to mention in the last video. When we were living with his mom, there was one time where I did leave while he was at work. I took my son. We went down to one of my foster sister's houses, and she took me to a women's shelter. We stayed at the women's shelter for like a month maybe. And then I got out. I went to stay with the sister who took me to the women's shelter, which was right down the street from his house. He was never somebody who would go after me. Like, if I left, he would let me be gone, If I would leave while he's gone, and then he can know where I'm at, but he's not going to come after me, So I stayed right down the street from where he lived. And then I ended up taking my son down there to see him one day, and then we ended up kind of back together. And that's how we ended up being back together, and then moving to my house, which was right next door to the church. I'm sorry, I forgot to say that part. But yeah, I stayed in the women's shelter for a minute. He didn't know where it was. I didn't really have contact with him. But when I got out and I went to my foster sister's house, then that's when, we got back in touch, and ended up back in a relationship again. So pretty much anytime I got back with this man, it was my fault. It was because of me. I wasn't forced. I wasn't threatened. I just had this thing in my mind where I want my son to have both of his parents, and I'm trying to do what I can to make that happen, because I know how it feels not having your mother and not having your father. And I didn't want him to go through anything that I went through. So that's why, I did some pretty dumb stuff. People would say it was dumb, and it was, just to make sure that my son had his parents. But so here we are living in my house. And by this time, he has a pretty decent job working at a restaurant. So now things seem to be going a lot better because he is working, everything's stable. It seems like, our family thing is coming together. And, I still kind of had my guard up, but at the same time, I was happy that things were working out, So what ended up happening is he lost his job. Once he lost his job, things went back to the abusive state. And things actually got worse. This is when the sexual abuse started up, a lot worse than what it already was. And just all kinds of, like, this man would torture me. It's like he would just find reasons to take his frustrations out on me. It's not like he's going out every day looking for another job. No, he's just spending his days trying to figure out what he can do to hurt me, And it sucked because, when he had a job, everything was going well. And now that he's not working, it's like, okay, now everything is on me. I have to pay for everything. I have to pay all the bills. I have to make sure he has money in his pocket. I didn't have anything for myself. He had a cell phone that I had to pay for to make sure that he was able to communicate with the outside world. I didn't have a cell phone. And he would sit up. I remember when the first of the month would come, and this, I'm receiving SSI. When the first of the month come and my check comes, he's sitting up writing down things that, well, I need to get this. I got to get my weed. So that's going to cost this much. And, like, he took control of my money that was coming in, and he spent it the way he saw fit. So it was crazy because, that was my life. And eventually I got to a point where things got so bad that I needed to reach out to my family for help. So one day, it was his birthday, and I'll never forget this day, and you'll see why. So on his birthday, he woke up and was like, this is what I want you to do for me for my birthday. He said, I want you to go to the store, buy me a steak, cook it, and I want you to basically sexually please me sexually all day. Like, that's what he wanted from me. And I already hated doing that with him, because who, would go through so much abuse and then be happy to be intimate with their abuser? Nobody, right? And you're telling me you want me to please you, to satisfy you all day? No. And I know that it was going to be some abuse being a part of it, because if I didn't do something right, or if I didn't, whatever, the way he wanted, then I would get hit or punched or anything, choked. So I knew it was going to be a day of hell for me. And I had just gotten to my breaking point where I had to go. When he left, he went to go to his mom's house, to probably go smoke with her and, see if anybody got him anything for his birthday or whatever. So while he was gone, he expected me to walk around the corner to the store and get the meat and, whatever. But instead, I went next door to the church and I told my family what happened. And they called, the police, the non-emergency number, and they came out and I told them what was happening. And I just told them, I don't want him to get arrested. I just want him out of my house, And they're like, well, we can't. They couldn't arrest him anyway because I didn't have any bruises on my body at the time to prove anything. And then they couldn't ask him to leave the house because he lived there. Like, all his stuff was there. So it's like, we can't just, take him out of his place of residence. Even though I showed them, this is my apartment, this is my lease, I'm on it, he's not on it. At that time, it didn't matter. So in a time of desperation, I had revealed to them that he had a warrant out for his arrest for, I don't know if it was drugs. I think it was drugs or whatever. So they're like, well, we can take him on that. So he came walking back around. The police grabbed him, handcuffed him, and took him to jail. So that's how I got free from him at that time. It ain't over. So for I think he was there for 3 months in jail. That's when I had my little freedom. I was trying to get back to myself. My son's birthday their birthday is 9 days apart. So my son's birthday came up. I got to have him a little birthday party that I wouldn't have been able to have if he was there. But, he had a nice little birthday party. Some of the daycare kids came. And, we had little games and ice cream and cake. And, he was only a year old at this time. So it wasn't too much he could do. But he enjoyed it. All the kids enjoyed it. So it was nice. And then next thing you know, he gets out of jail, right? When he gets out of jail, he does not bother me. His mom, I guess, had moved to Memphis. And he moved there with her. Once he got out of jail, he didn't come bother me, nothing, So eventually, I believe he did call to check up on his son and everything, which was fine. By this time, I'm straight, I'm cool. This is like, let me see. Is it like December, close to Christmas or something? And, I was cool with that. I talked to him and told him how his son was doing. He wasn't really upset with me. He didn't call me with no anger or no vengeance or nothing like that. And he just seemed like he was trying to do better, right? So he asked me if I could bring our son to Memphis to see him. And so I'm like, I'm thinking, conversation's been good. He's been doing good and everything, talking to me good and everything. So I'm like, okay. So next thing you know, we're packing up our bags. I had, I think, 2 weeks worth of clothes for us. Because I didn't know if I was going to stay there for a week or if I was going to stay there for 2 weeks. It just depended on how things worked out. So I go to Memphis, y'all. Everything is good. I catch the bus out there, the Greyhound. Everything is good out there, at first. For the first couple of weeks, everything was good. And, he was real nice, catering to me, doing really good with our son. And I'm like, okay, maybe this time away has helped him to reevaluate the way that he was, and maybe it made him want to change. And in my mind, I'm still thinking about the 2-parent thing for my son. So here we are in this space where I'm living I'm actually in another state somewhere I've never been. I don't know anybody there except for him and his mom and his sister, because that's who he lived with. And so eventually I just decided to stay. why did I decide to stay? I just decided to stay, right? And then once he got comfortable with me being there, all the abuse and stuff came back. And this time I don't have anywhere to go. I don't have anybody to run to. So I was pretty much at his mercy. So yeah, everything was bad. Everything, oh my goodness. It got to the point anything was my fault. Even if there was nothing to complain about, it was my fault. Like, crazy, right? So next thing you know, I'm starting to get blamed for his sister. His sister would come, and bring company into the house. We lived in the living room. That's where we lived. The living room was our personal space. Even though people can come in and out, there's no door, there's nothing. We don't really have privacy. But mom and his sister pretty much stayed in the back of the apartment in their room. It was a 2-bedroom apartment. Each of them had their own room. So pretty much, we're living in the front, but sometimes when his sister would have company, she would bring the company into the living room, and she'll, because she didn't always want her company in her bedroom. And if he would leave out, and then come back, because sometimes he would do little odd jobs. He didn't have a specific job, but it was this construction man who needed help with certain little things. And so he would go help him and work with him for, at least a couple days out the week. So if he leaves and comes back and his sister got company in the living room or in the dining area, it's like the dining area. You know how apartments or even houses, they have one big room and one part of the room is the dining area, then the other part is the living room. So I'm in the living room. She's in the dining area with her company. He comes in and sees that she's got a man in the living room. In the dining room, and I'm over in the living room. So he looking at them and then looking at me. And then all of a sudden I'm guilty of something. Like, her company is her business. I'm not talking to these people. It's anything. Like, sometimes he would be there when she would have company. And if I had to get up to go to the bathroom or something, it's like, why you bending over for that man to be looking at you? I'm just literally getting up off of the couch. That's all I'm doing. I'm not getting up, bending. I'm not, you know how you got to kind of lean up a little bit to stand up. Like I'm sitting down here and I lean up to stand up, right? But in his mind, I'm bending over, sticking my butt out for the man to look at as I'm standing up, like. And it was so stupid to me. Sometimes I would make a face like, what? You sound crazy, And I would get hit for that. I know what you was doing. I saw what you were doing. First of all, I don't even have no butt to be sticking out. I was real skinny. I'm 100 pounds. I ain't got no butt. But for some reason, he felt like that's what I was trying to do. Oh, let me get up and toot my booty out at his sister's boyfriend. Like, it was stupid. If I looked a certain way, all the stuff was in his mind, y'all. Like, if he could find a reason to say I did something, breathed the wrong way, looked the wrong way, sounded the wrong way, then I was getting hit for it. And like I said, his sister and his mom spent most of their time in their bedroom. So he knew when to wait to act crazy. He knew when to, when the coast was clear. Okay, now I can act a fool. Because he know if his mama saw it, she would say something. She wouldn't really do nothing about it because there ain't much she could do. But she would flip out on him, So there's one time when, he was even mean to Michael. He would whoop Michael, with a belt. Michael is a year old, going on 2. And that's when he started spanking him, like, with a belt. And Michael was unhappy. My son was unhappy because he wasn't getting the love that he deserved or that he required. He was getting all his needs met, like he had clothes, food, and everything that he needed, but he didn't have the love, the affection that he deserved as a baby, you know. So this man literally, there was times where we would eat, and Michael was one of those babies that didn't like vegetables. So I remember one time we had peas and corn mixed together. And Michael was real stubborn too, my son. He would have to sit, because we didn't have no dining room table. My son would sit on the floor, like on a blanket or something in the kitchen to eat his food. And his dad would force him to eat those peas and corn. And Michael wouldn't chew it up. His dad would be like, well, if you ain't going to chew the food up, then I'm just going to keep putting it in your mouth. And I would keep telling him, stop doing that because he's going to choke. But he didn't listen. So Michael crying with food in his mouth, and his dad just steady shoving the food in his mouth, and he's not eating it, he's crying. And eventually he would start coughing and food coming out of his mouth, and then his dad grabbing him up to go give him a whooping. And I'm like, man, what is wrong with you? He's a baby, you know? So I would get to a point where I would tell him, that's enough, stop, that's enough. And even Michael, my son, was trained. Like Michael, my son slept on the couch. Me and Michael's dad made a pallet on the floor. So when it was time for Michael to go to bed, he would have to lay on his stomach on the couch with his face turned towards the back of the couch. And he better not be moving around. He better not be fidgeting. He better not turn his head around. Like, it was terrible. And then when I would say something, that would get me beat, you know? So Michael had a little bit of suffering that he went through too. And it was terrible. My son was not happy. I was not happy. Shoot, his dad wasn't happy either, but he was evil. And there would be times where he would tell me, you may as well kiss your son goodbye because tonight is your last night. And he'll have a knife up to my throat and make me literally go up to the couch and kiss my son while he's sleeping, because he's saying that he's going to end my life that night. And that's happened a couple of times. There was a couple of times where he would wait until the middle of the night when he know everybody sleep. It's times where I knew that, you know, he's mad at me for something that I did or didn't do that day, and that night I was going to be punished. It's almost like, you know how your parent be like, you know, I'm going to whoop your butt when we get home. If you out in public and you do something bad, and then they be like, you going to get a whooping when you get home. It was like, yeah, I'm getting you tonight. So it's times where he would, you know, make me sit on the floor on our pallet, put the cover over my head so that people wouldn't hear the slap when he would backhand me for whatever reason. Like, for instance, one time I didn't get his food fast enough, where somebody would cook the food, right? Say it was pork chops. We were having pork chops one day. And dinner was done. His sister came in and got her food before I was able to get his food, and she got the biggest pork chop. I got a slap for that. Because I was supposed to go in there, hurry up and make his plate and put it away so that he would get the biggest piece of meat. And that was just between me and him. It's not like his family agreed, yeah, Michael's supposed to get the biggest piece of meat. No. That was just something that he wanted to make sure I did. And there was times where when his sister would cook, she would get her food before anybody else did. And then now he's mad at me because I didn't get his food right away. What was I supposed to do? Go knock the girl out the way and say, move, I need to get his food first? I mean, what did he expect me to do? So it's times where I got backhanded for that. There was a couple times where in the middle of the night, he would make me stand in the corner, literally stand up facing the wall, naked. And then he said, if somebody come out their room, you better not move. you know, but he would always make me lay back down before anybody came out of their room. But it was a humiliation thing that he was doing. There was a time where he got mad at me and he choked me, and it was so much to the point where I passed out. I woke up on the floor and he's panicking. Oh my God, are you okay? Are you okay? Oh my God. But that didn't stop the abuse either. That man could have killed me. And I did nothing to deserve it. I didn't do anything. I've never done anything to this man. Like, I went through a lot of abuse at this man's hands and didn't deserve it.